Hello and welcome to the Dante and Virgil Musings podcast. We are your hosts, Chase and Brandon. So, Brandon, what is our topic of discussion for today?
Topic of discussion of today is what is a meme? What are the effects of media on society? So, this is my inspiration for this topic. Actually, came from a video game series that is quite dear to my heart, which is called Metal Gear Solid series. And given the fact in our previous podcast we had discussed regarding the corruption within the government, I thought, as a special topic for today, and also to bring to the audience's attention a very specific scene from a video game. It's called from Metal Gear Solid 2. That I'm not going to really spoil it if you haven't played the game and actually seen the scene. But just to put it into some context, basically there was an agent that went on a mission, and what he's going to find out from this scene was how I don't know, the CIA or the government that he was agency that he was working for basically had punked him as part of like some kind of psyop or like a social experiment. This is actually going to be a pretty technical reading because there's going to be a lot of big words in it, so just keep that in mind. So but it's kind of it's a bit of a scary reading as well. So but it's going to put it's such a well done scene. It's practically talked about. It's actually called apparently like one of the most profound moments in gaming history. Now, yeah, I'm sure there's probably other video games that have had maybe equivalent profound moments, but I just had to read and discuss the scene because it's just something that really hits home with the theme of the meme, how it affects on society, and if you guys ever think that you're living in a social matrix, so to speak, this scene will do it. So at least that's my intro. Chase, what do you want to talk about once I've covered this particular scene or read the dialogue for it?
So, I want to cover the side effects of this infectious meme culture we have
Mm-hmm.
and like basically brainwashing and what effects that has on people and society as a whole.
So Chase, how about this? Well, as I'm reading the dialogue, if any of the points from the dialogue, I mean, you've seen a clip of this before.
Yes.
Actually, you didn't see the clip before this one.
I watched the
So
video
I want
you
to
sent
put
me.
okay. Oh, well, this is this is like the actual I guess the codec conversation that the character Raiden has with the Colonel AI that pretty much like goes into the S3 plan and like why human beings need to be like enslaved. It's a pretty crazy scene. But there's also a scene before that scene, where um, like even after like one of the main bad guys in the game like finds out that the whole thing was just like a setup from the government, like the whole operation is basically like a setup from like the government. Um, he's still the guy. Like I mean, the guy's plan like basically ends up failing, and but he still like wants gives the main character like a choice of either facing his past or being like, killed by the man that like raised him as like a soldier. Um, and also this guy, and also the main character or villain in this, was actually one of three clones from some very powerful and influential soldier that had like the code name Big Boss. So anyway, so I hope that brings at least some context to the scene that's going to happen. Basically, like this, I'll read even like the background intro as well. Um, they're basically going into like Federal Hall, which is also very symbolic. So anyway, without further ado, I can talk about this more context as I read the scene. Would you like me to start reading it?
Yes, please.
All right, so I will read it. Try to put some oomph to it, but again, I'm not much of like an actor. But anyway, let's just go for it. All right, and it's so fitting because guess what the title of the section is called? It says, "Yes, you should be confused now." Totally Hideo Kojima troll fashion. Anyway, enjoy. Let's get to it. Prepare to be like mind blown. Okay, let's go. All right. So, okay, just then, Arsenal gear begins to move forward. A faraway view of the monstrous arsenal is shown going under the Verrazano Bridge and toward the city when Solidus and Raiden fall off Arsenal and land on the roof of a building. The surrounding area is completely devastated, and the gigantic arsenal has come to a halt. The two come to their feet. Solidus looks around and realizes where they are. Federal Hall. I'm not going to laugh, man. He starts laughing madly. What are you laughing at? Do you know what day it is today? April 30th. Live footage of Federal Hall and the surrounding area shown. That's right. George Washington took office as the first president of the United States of America 200 years ago today. And it happened right here. We were going to declare another independence, the dawn of a new nation, here. The end of the Patriot's secret rule. Now, before I continue this, I think you might know who the Patriots are alluding to in actual life, but anyway, let me continue. Liberation of this country, this was where it was supposed to begin. This is where freedom could have been born. End of footage. All you want is power at any cost. So the biggest irony about that statement is this guy, the main character, is completely oblivious. I'll read the next quote, and you'll see why. Read how he retorts. He says, "Jack, it's not power I want. What I want is to take back from the patriots are things like freedom, civil rights, opportunities, the founding principles of this country. Everything that's about to be wiped out by their digital censorship. Jack, listen to me. We're all born with an expiration date. No one lasts forever. Life is nothing but a grace period for turning our genetic material into the next generation. Ripples in the pool of water are shown like before with Emma. Don't worry about that name. The data of life is transferred from parent to child. That's how it works. But we have no heirs, no legacy, cloned from our father with the ability to reproduce conveniently engineered out. What is our legacy if we cannot pass the torch? Proof of our existence. A mark of some sort? When the torch is passed on from parent to child, it extends beyond DNA. Information is imparted as well. And of that, all I want is to be remembered by other people, by history. The Patriots are trying to protect their power, their own interest, by controlling the digital flow of information. I want my memory, my existence to remain. Unlike an intron of history, I will be remembered as an exon. That will be my legacy, my mark on history. But the Patriots would deny us even that. I will triumph over the Patriots and liberate us all, and we will become the sons of liberty. And this is where it gets crazy. Raiden gets a codec call. This is where it gets even weirder. All right. Raiden, are you receiving? We're still here. How is that possible? The AI was destroyed. Only GW. By the way, GW stands for George Washington. Who are you? The colonel's face becomes transparent. You can see his skull. This happens several times during the dialogue. It also occasionally flashes his portrait from MG2. Now this, ready? To begin with, we're not what you call human. Over the past 200 years, a kind of consciousness formed layer by layer in the crucible of the White House. It's not unlike the way life started in the oceans 4 billion years ago. The White House was our primordial soup, a base of evolution. We are formless. We are the very disciplined morality that Americans invoke so often. How can anyone hope to eliminate us? As long as this nation exists, so will we. Cut the crap. If you're immortal, why would you take away individual freedoms and censor the net? Jack, this is from Rose. Don't be silly. Don't you know that our plans have your interests, not ours, in mind? What? Jack, listen carefully like a good boy. The mapping of the human genome was completed early this century. As a result, the evolutionary log of the human race lay open to us. We started with genetic engineering, and in the end, we succeeded in digitizing life itself. But there are things not covered by genetic information. What do you mean? Human memories, ideas, culture, history. Mean genes don't contain any record of human history. Is it something that should not be passed on? Should that information be left at the mercy of nature? We've always kept records of our lives through words, pictures, symbols, from tablets to books. But not all the information was inherited by later generations. A small percentage of the whole was selected and processed, then passed on. Not unlike genes, really. That's what history is, Jack. But in the current digitized world, trivial information is accumulating every second, preserved in all its triteness, never fading, always accessible. Rumors about petty issues, misinterpretations, slander, all this junk data preserved in an unfiltered state, growing at an alarming rate. It will only slow down social progress, reduce the rate of evolution. Raiden, you seem to think that our plan is one of censorship. Are you telling me it's not? You're being silly. What we propose to do is not to control content, but to create context. Create context. The digital society furthers human flaws and selectively rewards development of convenient half-truths. Just look at the strange juxtapositions of morality around you. Billions spent on new weapons in order to humanely murder other humans. Rights of criminals are given more respect than the privacy of their victims. Although there are people suffering in poverty, huge donations are made to protect endangered species. Everyone grows up being told the same thing. Be nice to other people, but beat out the competition. You're special. Believe in yourself and you will succeed. But it's obvious from the start that only a few can succeed. You exercise your right to freedom, and this is the result. All rhetoric to avoid conflict and protect each other from hurt. The untested truths spun by different interests continue to churn and accumulate in the sandbox of political correctness and value systems. Everyone withdraws into their own small gated community, afraid of a larger forum. They stay inside their little ponds, leaking whatever truth suits them into the growing cesspool of society at large. The different cardinal truths neither clash nor mesh. No one is invalidated, but nobody is right. Not even natural selection can take place here. The world is being engulfed in truth, and this is the way the world ends. Not with a bang, but a whimper. We're trying to stop that from happening. It's our responsibility as rulers. Just as in genetics, unnecessary information and memory must be filtered out to stimulate the evolution of the species. And you think you're qualified to decide what's necessary and not? Absolutely. Who else could wade through the sea of garbage you people produce, retrieve valuable truths, and even interpret their meaning for later generations? That's what it means to create context. I'll decide for myself what to believe and what to pass on. But is that even your own idea or something Snake told you? That's the proof of your incompetence right there. You lack the qualifications to exercise free will. That's not true. I have the right. Does something like a self exist inside of you? That which you call self serves as nothing more than a mask to cover your own well being. In this era of ready made truths, self is just something used to preserve those positive emotions that you occasionally feel. Another possibility is that self is a concept you conveniently borrowed under the logic that it would endow you with some sense of strength. That's crap, is it? Would you prefer that someone else tell you? All right, then, explain it to him. Jack, you're simply the best, and you've got there all by yourself. Oh, what happened? Do you feel lost? Why not try a bit of soul searching? Don't think you'll find anything, though. Ironic, though self is something that you yourself fashioned. Every time something goes wrong, you turn around and place the blame on something else. It's not my fault. It's not your fault. In denial, you simply resort to looking for another, more convenient truth in order to make yourself feel better. Leaving behind is an instant the so-called truth you once embraced. Should someone like that be able to decide what is truth? Should someone like you even have the right to decide? You've done nothing but abuse your freedom. You don't deserve to be free. We're not the ones smothering the world. You are. The individual is supposed to be weak, but far from powerless. A single person has the potential to ruin the world. And the age of digitized communication has given even more power to the individual. Too much power for an immature species. Building a legacy involves figuring out what is wanted and what needs to be done for that goal. All this you used to struggle with. Now, we think for you. We are your guardians, after all. You want to control human thought, human behavior? Of course, anything can be quantified nowadays. That's what this exercise was designed to prove. You fell in love with me just as you were meant to, after all. Isn't that right, Jack? Ocelot was not told the whole truth, to say the least. We rule an entire nation. Of what interest would a single soldier, no matter how able, be to us? The S3 plan does not stand for solid snake simulation. What it does stand for is selection for societal sanity. Some scenes from the game showing the game over screens are shown. The S3 is a system for controlling human will and consciousness. S3 is not you, a soldier trained in the image of Solid Snake. It is a method, a protocol, that created a circumstance and made you what you are. So you see, we're the S3, not you. What you experienced was the final test of its effectiveness. That's crazy. You heard what President Johnson said. The Arsenal's GW system is the key to their supremacy. The objective of this exercise was to establish such a method. We used Shadow Moses as a paradigm for this exercise. I wonder if you would have preferred a fantasy setting. We chose that backdrop because of its extreme circumstances. It was an optimal test for S3's crisis management capacity. If the model could trigger, control, and solve this, it would be ready for any contingency. And now we have our proof. Raiden, there are also reasons behind your selection. Solidus raised plenty of other child soldiers. Do you know why we chose you over them? It was because you were the only one who refused to acknowledge the past. All the others remembered what they were and paid for it daily. But you turn your back on everything you don't like. You do whatever you like. See only the things you like, and for yourself alone. Yes, Rose can attest to that. You refused to see me for what I was. I lied to you, but I wanted to be caught. You pretend to be understanding, to be a gentleman. You never made a conscious attempt to reach out to me. The only time you did was when I gave you no choice to do so. I was just trying not to what? Trying not to hurt me? Dear, the one you were trying not to hurt was yourself. Avoiding the truth under the guise of kindness is all that you did. It occurred to you to do nothing but look out for yourself. Even if you claimed that it was for my sake, that feeling was nowhere to be seen. In the end, everything was for your sake. I was never part of the picture. Exactly right. So you see, you're a perfect representative of the masses we need to protect. This is why we chose you. You accepted the fiction we provided, obeyed our orders, and did everything you were told to. The exercise is a resounding success. Didn't I tell you that GW is still incomplete? But not anymore thanks to you. Your persona, experiences, triumphs, and defeats are nothing but byproducts. The real objective was ensuring that we could generate and manipulate them. It's taken a lot of time and money, but it was well worth it considering the results. I think that's enough talk. It's time for the final exercise. Raiden, take Solidus down. Think again. I'm through doing what I'm told. Oh, really? Aren't you forgetting something? If you die, my child dies. The termination of vital signals from your nanomachines means the death of Olga's child, not to mention the death of Rose. She's wired the same ring. Rose? Does she actually exist? Of course I do, Jack. You have to believe me. Damn. It'll be a fight to the death. Saw this at least wants you dead. We will collect the necessary data from this last fight, then we'll consider the exercise closed. So, Jack the Ripper, will it be Saldus, the Patriot's creation, or you, Saldus' creation? Our beloved monsters, enjoy yourselves. And that's the end of that conversation.
So,
Yeah.
Brandon, you said a lot
Mm-hmm.
here.
Yeah.
And is there a way you can summarize what was happening between these people in their conversation?
Yeah. So, let's see. Is there any like particular points that they were talking about that you'd like to like bring
Yes,
up
so
that I read?
what's the general idea? Like, what is the AI doing to this character?
So pretty much like as far so the thing about when you play Metal Gear Solid 2, the character Raiden is essentially being put on a mission that was essentially all staged so that the AI could essentially test to whether or not they could manipulate human behavior to to basically get a result, like a particular result. So there was kind of, it's almost like, I guess they were like the like the Patriots or the AI, they essentially, control the world. And I guess not only like they do experiments, like not only like with in the case of the main character Ryan had went through, but I'm sure they probably do experiments where they're collecting data and information based on human beings, how they're reacting to what they're being exposed to either from the media. But what's really crazy about this scene was that they basically staged like an entire like terrorist attack and uprising. And like people did, and like I said, and what was crazy about it is like people did die. It wasn't like it was like fake, but they basically staged an entire terrorist threat and put an agent there to test to see if he could. And what's really crazy about it is that this 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 mission that he had similarities compared to the mission of the first game. So they took data from the exercise because they all these characters have they're connected through nanomachines. So they're all plugged into a system where all the data of their exercise is essentially like uploaded into their system, and then either the AI or the people that measure the data that goes into the system, they're able to basically make decisions as far as, because the whole point of I think what the creator was intending to try and communicate, based on the scene, was that at least the way I mean, we can probably relate it to what we're dealing with today is what is like going on with our government or even with corporations today, that they tend to tweak and manipulate the truth, and they put out content and information on the internet to influence human behavior and have it take on as though it's like their identity, right? So you wanna ask any more questions, or
I think you summed it up very well.
yeah. So that's pretty much a summary of the scene. I mean, like I said, again, like, this is obviously fiction, but this, to put into context, this game came out back in like 2001, um, and it was essentially a warning to, because again, the theme of this game is called meme. It was essentially a warning, since we live in a digital age right now, with just how much powerful entities can take advantage of spreading misinformation, um, possibly even, because I don't know, like, there's been I'm trying to remember if there's like an example like today. I remember there was a video I watched where there were people that would like walk like outside at night, and they would see like clowns just randomly appear and scare the living crap out of them. I don't know if anybody was murdered by the clowns, but there was people that would go out, and there would be clowns like standing there or chasing after them, and then they would just like disappear. And I'm just wondering, like, how the heck could a clown be there that comes like out of nowhere, scaring the crap out of like people recording a video? I have no idea. So I don't know if that's like an example of something the government is doing, as far as how they try to instill fear into people, or how are people going to react. I mean, I have no idea. But yeah, go ahead.
So, would you say we are living in a disinformation age currently?
Yes. Yeah, I would definitely say so. I mean, as we discussed, last time, I mean, isn't our well, in what way? Actually, let me take tread back a bit, Chase. Like, um, disinformation in what way? Like as far as everything that we consume for our media, as far as how we're educated, or is there any examples you'd like to touch upon?
Yes. So, one thing I would like to touch upon is the disinformation about climate change.
Right. So yeah, as that's a pretty good transition. Let me look at your notes. Did you was that actually put in your notes?
Yeah, so the
I guess.
universities specifically are propagating disinformation about climate change. And there's this one gentleman, his name is Peter Ridd with two D's, and he's
Hmm.
saying that the universities are shutting him down because he's going against their narrative of the Great Barrier Reef being affected by climate change rather than other things that are destroying the reef.
Okay. Um, yeah. So, I mean, did you also want to touch upon what's the word called? Is it called geoengineering?
That's not ringing any bells for me.
Okay. I don't know. There's like, well, what I mean is like, if there's if the government has been doing any experiments as far as like manipulating the weather, and I don't know about the climate, but they, because I because I know in the media they like especially as an example we've had like this current hurricane that we had called we had called Hurricane Ian, sorry, and the media is basically targeting that, oh, it's because of climate change, because of people like driving cars and stuff like that. So I don't know if it's really because of fossil fuels, or if it's the cause of it's just because of geoengineering or weather manipulation from the government. I mean, I don't know, like, I don't know exactly how it works, but I think the government may have patents on technology like that, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, so Mother Nature, pretty crazy. There's no way to know for sure if the government is influencing these massive storms or like any other natural destructive event, but we can say for sure that the things they're spraying in the sky, chemtrails, those are actually happening.
Yeah, yeah, with that I know. Yeah, I know that there are definitely chemtrails. And would you like to talk more about how chemtrails are able to affect the weather, affect our environment? Why is the government even doing this in the first place? And how much of it is causing harm rather than good to the planet?
Okay, so their objective is to spray the trails to combat climate change, in effect, like blocking out the sun, making it colder. But in the chemicals that they're spraying is things like aluminum. So, aluminum, as we know, is a cause of Alzheimer's. So, all this spraying is reducing the sun exposure, basically making it a heaven for, let's say, reptilians. But that's that's kind of out there, so I don't really want to talk about that. But like, what is their objective with this? It's the same objective with fluoride. So,
Hmm.
what is the purpose of fluoride? Fluoride is just calcifying the pineal gland.
Right.
They're basically making a dumbed down, degraded populace through their brainwashing and barrage of misinformation.
All right. So, right. That's why we're covering sort of the topic of meme is because I know you also shared with me earlier a video, well, two videos. One was about Sinclair's script for stations, where essentially all the news media repeated pretty much the same thing. There was like no originality at all with them telling the news. They were just, all like following a script. It's almost like these people like, work for these companies and have no original thoughts or even any original insight into what's, actually going on in the world.
Yes, and have you ever heard of the Milgram experiment?
No, what is the Milgram experiment?
So, the Milgram experiment, I believe it was done in Harvard. Basically, they hired some individuals to participate in this experiment where they strapped an actor up to a chair and
Mm-hmm.
basically put this person that they hired to press buttons and electrocute them if they say the wrong order of words. And there was a supervisor telling the person pressing the button to continue leveling up the amount of shock. And these people were getting like mentally, like they were not okay with this, but they still went on with it until the person receiving the shocks, theoretical shocks, they're not real shocks,
Mm-hmm.
until the person receiving the shocks just stopped responding completely. And the overseer just said, like, keep going, like, don't stop. You can't give up now. And basically, the people pushing the buttons just continued to hypothetically electrocute this actor, but they didn't know that at the time. But it tore them apart emotionally.
Okay. So, when they actually were pressing the buttons, was someone on the other side actually being electrocuted, or was this kind of like, was this to see if they would continue pressing the button even though the person on the other side was like, getting electrocuted? And I think it's even possible that the person was pretending to be dead or something like that.
Yes. So the shocks weren't real, but they would make noises as if they were being shocked. So this experiment is to just show that these individuals pressing the buttons are willing to forego their morality in this situation where they're just appealing to authority and just discarding every humanity they have left.
Yeah, I mean, and we can kind of go back to the scene that I was telling you before, where the character Raiden, like, let's see, throughout like throughout the whole like mission that he was on, he was basically tricked into doing things that he didn't really want to do either, but the Colonel AI told him to do it because it was part of the simulation. Which the character Ryan's like freaked out. Well, why the hell do I have to follow like this protocol and crap? And he's questioning like the motives of the colonel, and the colonel just tells him, no, this is what you need to do, and you as a player, like, do it anyway. Even when there was like outside factors like Solid Snake getting into the picture, the colonel's like, oh, don't work with him. The guy's like an outlier. he wasn't part. He wasn't part of the script. He wasn't part of the script as far as the mission that he was on. So they had to follow like to the T, like everything that he was told to do. And if he would go outside of it, he would, the colonel would tell him like, no, the mission is going to fail essentially. If you don't do exactly what we tell you to do.
So, can we forgive willful ignorance, such as the Nazis or even police today, saying that they were, quote, just following orders?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The question is, can we forgive them? I mean,
Yeah, how do we even approach these people? How should we even consider them? Are they even human at this point if they have no conscience and no free will?
yeah, yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, it's. I mean, I think it's not. I guess it's not such a black and white answer as far as how we would deal with them. I mean, first of all, like, you know, well, let's take a step back. Like, if I guess it depends on the context. Like, if you're, I guess, like a soldier, right, in the military. Well, actually, it can go either way because like even the because here's the thing, like you know, I guess I'll go back to what Metal Gear's talking, and it brings up a pretty good point because like you know a soldier is essentially supposed to supposedly be loyal to the government or be loyal to the cause, and they're not supposed to question what they've been told or what they're told to do. So in the case of like the Nazis or whatever, yeah, they were in that case they were just quote unquote following orders because they were brainwashed to think that what they were doing was right, or at least, or maybe they didn't care, or maybe, I mean, I guess it depends on their motives. I mean, some of them were probably just following orders. Some of them could have been people that were just flat out soulless and just wanted to just cause harm, regardless of the repercussions, because that's unfortunately the casualties of war and the casualties of genocide. And it's just and like, well, I mean, how you deal with it is, if you're, well, if you, I guess it goes, it has to do with with a person choosing to be sovereign and being able to think for yourself as far as doing what is right. So obviously, if you're dealing with an opposition like the Nazis, where where we know that they're causing harm and destruction in society, then the conscious, and if there's no way to, because again, when you're dealing with those kind of people, I mean, they're indoctrinated again with a meme, right? The meme, they believe that what they're doing is correct, and no amount of reason or questioning may change their mind to have them question
Do you
what
mind
it
if
is.
I throw something in here? So I wrote
Yeah.
down people are more likely to kill those who threaten their ideology rather than admit their whole life is a lie.
Yeah, wasn't that a quote from the video that you watched?
Yes, I just thought I'd throw that in
Yeah,
there.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's, yes, yeah, very much true. I mean, again, that's why memes are so, like, I mean, sure, genes influence us, but memes, ideas, behaviors, culture, everything that um has a huge, I guess it's like kind of like nature and nurture, you know but how we're raised by our environment, and kind of the ideas that are imprinted like in our psyches, into our psyches. So you know and yeah, there are some people that are so attached and are so indoctrinated with their ideologies because they believe that those ideologies are right and correct, that in order to maintain it, rather than admitting that maybe they could be wrong, it could be wrong. In the case of what you mentioned before, yeah, it could very well, your one's ideology could very well be a lie. It could be a total misinformation and a lie. That, I mean, it's one thing, okay, you know, if a person doesn't want to deal with you because there's a clash of beliefs, whatever, even though I think there should be more of a tolerance of, different viewpoints. But it's another thing if someone is willing to kill another human being because one, thinks differently than you. And I mean, who's to say, why ideology is correct. I mean, that to me is like and that is a huge issue, that there are some human beings out there that would kill another person just if their ideologies are clashed, and that is definitely a big issue. That's where the indoctrination is can be very severe, and all I can say is, if you meet people that are that extreme like that, and if you're aware that they may do that, then those are probably not that they're if they're radical, ideologists that are willing to kill someone else what they, for what they believe in. Um, I don't know. Maybe they're not the type of people you want to hang out with, or maybe. But I guess. But then again, also their ideologies, depending on how radical it is, could be the. But go ahead, yeah, Chase.
So, after you finish what you were going to say, thought I could share the top 6 signs of brainwashing and go a little in depth about each one.
Yeah, go ahead. You can start with that. Go
All
ahead.
right, so first up is extreme tension. So this is more about government brainwashing. So the extreme tension that the government places on the populace is manufactured threats such as 9/11 and now geopolitical war. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So I mean, geopolitical war. Yeah, that's a crazy thing about here's another question I'd like to like ask the audience is like you know why do people you know pay taxes, and yet even if they are using and they're using well, technically it's funded by debt, but they're using our tax money to fund wars and cause problems, and then they try to propose that they're that they are the solution for it. I mean, it's just the whole point of it is, from what I can see, is so they can use that. I guess you could call it like a proxy war or proxy threat, in order to pass some law, or in order to pass some or to have an agenda, as a way of manipulating the population to go along with whatever the government wants to do. Yeah, go ahead, Jace.
So the next one is overloading, which is just like so much information, both good and bad. And I think the mainstream media does a great job of this. Like they're just pumping out just like, yo, this guy died yesterday, and over here this person got saved from a tree with like a cat and I don't know, but like they
Yeah, yeah,
just the government and the mainstream media are working together so well, and it's easy to see this because the police will arrest independent journalists in the same area that popular media outlets, their journalists are allowed to set up, and then a police officer will come up to you and say, where is your press pass? As if there is a press pass. Like, have you ever heard of the First Amendment?
yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So it's like, okay, so the guys that are doing all the scriptings get supposedly a free pass, but then like if you're not with the in crowd, or that club that's pushing these agendas, they're like, what the heck, bro? So it's like, does the First Amendment even apply? Do these officers even care? Or they just want to be like big bullies because they earn a freaking paycheck? Are they really? Go ahead, yeah.
Right, which leads us into the next sign of brainwashing, which is intimidation. So
Oh,
now the cops are intimidating people who speak out, and more importantly, the judges are intimidating those people who are unlucky enough to find themselves in court, just like saying that they're wrong, and then the judge will just decide whatever they want.
yeah, exactly. I mean, and here's the other thing too. Like our education system doesn't really touch upon much at all about the law, and how the court system works, and that's how they're able to pretty much, get away with whatever. I mean, if the population is ignorant about their own rights, you know, the judge or the police officer, can just use, all they have to do is just use a little bit of intimidation, and if you're ignorant of your own rights, they'll just get away with it. It's just, yeah, go ahead.
Very well said.
Yeah, so, yeah, go ahead. You want to move on to the next?
Yes, so the next one is degradation, and this kind of reminds me of like these invisible IRS contracts. Like if you get a letter in the mail from the IRS, it's so degrading to receive that, and like you just feel like you're in a prison, like a debtor's prison.
Mm-hmm.
And another one of the degradation aspects is like elections and presidential elections. Like obviously it's a scam, but they're gonna pull out this whole dog and pony show as if like the presidential elections actually mean anything, and like all this political election actually does anything when it doesn't.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting because, as everybody, as well, hopefully the audience knows, I work as a CPA, and preparing tax returns and dealing with, tax resolutions. And yeah, I can tell you, yeah, dealing with the IRS is a pain. Is definitely a pain. Um, I mean, yeah, it's like, they send out those notices. They treat, taxation essentially as like debt, even though technically, taxation is supposed to be just a voluntary system where people have the choice, right? That's the key, the choice, to decide if they want to pay taxes, even though I don't know why people want to at this point, pay taxes, considering, the abuse and harm that they've been doing in society. And, so, and what was the other
It's so
point?
degrading, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very degrading. And what was the other point you touched upon before, besides the IRS?
Presidential elections or
Yeah,
just
yeah, that's
elections in
oh yeah,
general.
that's the joke of like of yeah, I was gonna mention that of politics in general is like, I mean, just to try and get into office is just, I don't know, it's just so confusing. And it's designed just to get, the specific people that they want in there, and even if you manage to get in there because, I don't know, you have connections with some people there, you're kind of, you're not really, you're kind of just like a figurehead anyway. Like, it's like, yeah, you apparently get some positions, you get some position of power in the government, but, you know how much of it's actually technically staged anyway, just to kind of appease the public, to, give people the illusion that they're living in democracy, to give people the illusion that, you know these issues are actually these, well, even then, like, if you listen to a lot of these like debates and political, spectacles on, on television, you know it's all memes, right? It's just like brainwashing. A lot of the times it's not even really. I'll quote from Socrates again. Okay, so strong minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, weak minds discuss people. Half the time during, most of these, political discussions, a lot of times it's like a lot of mudslinging. It's just like it's like defaming their, like, the person's character. It's just, I don't know, it's so stupid, like, and it's like, oh, it just makes me cringe. And not only that, like, it's none of it actually matters because it's just a drama. It's just a show. It's just like actors on TV, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the next sign is love bombing. And what I can think of is government bailouts for big corporations, We
Mm-hmm.
got to protect the job creators because we got to protect those jobs. And if we don't protect those jobs, these people will lose their job, and we can't possibly have that. Being sarcastic here,
Yeah, I know.
people, it's okay to lose your job. Like, we don't need to protect these big corporations and give them PPP loans and then just have them just enrich them with taxpayer money. So that is like, I don't understand it. Like, what is going on here?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's, well, like I said, all these, and that's the thing we're trying to like make a point, with this podcast is how, because the public thinks all these things are like independent. When we're trying to make the point, by do these discussions that they're all everything is very interlinked. Okay, the government is not independent from the media. The media is not independent from the corporations. All right, so they all have a role, that they need to play within this. We'll call it the social matrix, as a way of controlling the populations so that people obey what they do, right? That's why a lot of the media kind of, that's why media tries to like idolize a lot of these like fake celebrities or whatever, even though God knows what they did, right, in order to become powerful. And just go ahead, yeah.
So imagine being a CEO and then you think you need the government to keep your business afloat. Like, that's just so that's communism. That's the opposite of capitalism.
Yeah, right. Because the whole purpose of capitalism, as far as I understand, economically, is that you build your business based on merit, and you take that responsibility regardless of the highs and lows of your business. Why the heck would you want to be like a pawn or a slave to anyone, especially the government, to bail you out? I mean, I just, I don't. Go ahead.
So if your business fails, let it fail. Those
Exactly.
people who are at your business because they have a job there, they can find a different job.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, guys. Like, if you're listening to this, it's important to have an abundance mindset of opportunities. I mean, like, especially if anyone ever is like unhappy with the current jobs that they're in, they should totally look into doing freelance work for sure. Because again, no matter what occupation you're in, no matter what you're doing, I'm pretty sure that if you put in like your creative touch, and you're highly conscious, you can probably run a highly conscious business or side gig or whatever. You know, I would say better than a lot of these other companies out there, which are my friends, but I don't think they have a soul. A lot of these companies don't have a soul. Okay, like a lot of times when you work for these jobs, you're a cog in the machine, and you're not really tapping into your full creative potential as a human being. So go ahead. Yeah.
So that leads us to our last sign of brainwashing, known as isolation. And we are familiar with isolation because the big COV 19 happened where everyone became isolated for an extended period of time. So, another aspect of this government isolation is the municipality infrastructure, where the cars are prioritized over the pedestrians. Where if you're in a car, you can't talk to people. But if you're walking or biking, you can see people, you can talk to people. This isolation just tears communities apart. Same thing with suburbs. Suburbs just have each individual in their own home. No, like even in apartment complexes, these people don't know their neighbors. 56% of Americans don't know some of their neighbors, and then 26% of Americans don't know a majority of their neighbors. So that's like 1 in 6 don't know their neighbors' names. That's just this government cult has to be done about it.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually a very yeah, that's a very good point because and again yeah, I think part of the issue is well, yeah, part of it's because of COVID. The other part of it has to do with the fact that the technology that we have, especially through all these apps and everything, makes it like so addicting for people to feel to be caged like animals, to just be in their room, to be like in their rooms. And this is not to judge people that are in these circumstances. No, no. It was designed, purposely like this, to keep the public, sedated, among many other things. I mean, it's just kind of everywhere. But we're touching obviously regarding meme about the media. So there's just you know if there's no lesson you guys can learn from this is like take some time, shut off your phones. Trust me, the crap from whatever apps you guys enjoy will always be there. But and just like actually go outside and meet people like in the real world. Trust me. I mean, I've been trying. I've been going out every day on walks, and I actually do talk to some of the people in my neighborhood, and it's really nice. It's really nice to to get away from technology for a bit and just to kind of be out in nature. Go ahead.
So that's all I have for today.
Yeah, and it looks like oof, wow, an hour went by. Awesome. And it looks like I think we covered everything we need to cover. I covered that really provocative scene from Metal Gear Solid 2. So I hope that scene will get people to think about what they're consuming, that they at least question what it is that they know, that they think they know and they're consuming. And yeah, could it be just a meme, a meme that's passed on that could either be toxic, or maybe I guess it's a good meme or a positive meme that can be beneficial to the world. So yeah, leave that to the audience to decide from there.
Very well said.
Okay. So does that conclude our
I
podcast for today?
believe it does.
Great. Would you like me to do the
Yes,
countdown?
please.
Cool. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Thank
Have a good
you.
night.
Yeah, go ahead. Have a good night. Thank you for listening, guys.